So friends, today was the Senate confirmation hearing for Donald Trump's nominee to head the FBI, Kash Patel. Now here's the question. Can a guy who can clearly say Donald Trump won a presidential election, but who can't say that Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election, a guy who can't speak that simple truth to the Senate or to the American people, presumably or inferentially because he's afraid of how Donald Trump might react? Can a guy like that really stand up to Donald Trump and his worst instincts? Can a guy like that really be the head of the FBI? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, before we turn to what happened in today's confirmation hearing for Donald Trump's nominee to head up the FBI, Kash Patel, let's have a quick look at what we already knew about Kash Patel before today's hearing even kicked off. We know that Kash Patel authored a book titled The Plot Against the King, and yes, that would be King Donald, and it's described as a fantastical retelling of Hillary's horrible plot against Trump. We also know he vowed to shut down FBI headquarters on day one, if confirmed. This from the Colorado Sun. In an interview earlier this year, Patel vowed to sever the FBI's intelligence gathering activities from the rest of its mission and said he would shut down the Bureau's headquarters building on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., and reopen it the next day as a museum of the deep state. What do we know about former Attorney General Bill Barr's opinion of Kash Patel's suitability to serve in the upper echelons of the FBI? Now, remember, some of the same senators who were praising Kash Patel in today's confirmation hearing also previously praised Bill Barr, his service, his judgment. Well, here's what Bill Barr says about Kash Patel. Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr wrote in his memoir, One Damn Thing After Another, that he said Patel's proposed appointment to Deputy FBI Director, number 2, not even the director, during Trump's first term would happen only, quote, over my, Bill Barr's, dead body, close quote. Barr also said this, quote, Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, Barr wrote in his book. We also know that when Kash Patel testified on behalf of Donald Trump in a trial in Colorado, the trial court judge who was responsible for judging the credibility of Patel's testimony found that Patel was not a credible witness. This from the Colorado Sun. Patel testified at a Colorado court hearing related to Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in the run-up to the violent January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Patel, who at the time of the riot was chief of staff to the then acting defense secretary, testified that Trump had preemptively authorized 10,000 to 20,000 troops to deploy days before the attack, but a Colorado court, a Colorado judge, later found that Patel was, quote, not a credible witness, close quote, on that topic. We also know Kash Patel authored another book, Government Gangsters, which had a list of names that Patel referred to as a deep state list. The Washington Post has referred to it as an enemies list. And this is small consolation, but at least Trump's nominee for Attorney General, who would be the boss of the director of the FBI, Pam Bondi, testified directly to the Senate in her confirmation hearing that there will be no enemies list at the Department of Justice. So if she's being straight, truthful, honest about that, I guess she'll sit down with Patel in the event he is confirmed to be director of the FBI and counsel him to leave his little enemies list at home. Don't bring it to the office. And we also know one more thing about Kash Patel. This from the New York Times. Justice Department offers immunity to Trump aide for testimony in documents case. The advisor, Kash Patel, had previously declined to answer questions from prosecutors in front of a federal grand jury, citing his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. That's right, friends. Not only was Kash Patel found to be not a credible witness by a Colorado court when he testified on behalf of Donald Trump in a January 6th related case, but when he was subpoenaed to appear before a D.C. grand jury on the classified documents investigation, he refused to testify, invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. As every person who's brought before a grand jury has a right to do if their truthful testimony would tend to incriminate them, make it look like they committed a crime or they were complicit in a crime. That's the only legitimate basis a witness has to plead the Fifth, to invoke their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And that's what Kash Patel did. And the Department of Justice, the prosecutors, wanted to compel him to testify. They wanted the evidence he had, involved in the investigation of Trump's alleged classified documents crime, so they granted him immunity, which extinguishes one's Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Immunity trumps the Fifth Amendment. Why? Because your statements can't be used against you if you're testifying under a grant of immunity. And that is the kind of witness Kash Patel was, an immunized witness in the grand jury investigation of Donald Trump's suspected classified documents crimes. And this is just some of what we know about Kash Patel's unsuitability to be director of the FBI. So against that backdrop, let's have a look at just a little bit of today's reporting regarding the confirmation hearing of Kash Patel. From the New York Times, headline, Patel's loyalty to Trump has been a flashpoint in his confirmation hearing. And that article begins, Kash Patel spent years ingratiating himself with Donald Trump, regularly popping into the Oval Office in his first term, writing a children's book starring King Donald during the interregnum, and trailing him to rallies, banquets, and bus tours on the bumpy ride back to power. Few practitioners of the audience of one strategy have been quite so successful at translating loyalty and proximity to Trump into real influence. Fewer still are poised to be regarded as significantly as Mr. Patel, 44, Trump's pick to run the FBI, an agency with vast powers that he has vowed to radically overhaul. What binds Mr. Trump and Mr. Patel is the shared conviction that the Bureau has been weaponized against conservatives, including both of them. They argued it is politicized, and the only way to fix it is to empower an outsider willingly to faithfully execute the Trump agenda, a sharp divergence from the Bureau's historical norms and the decades-long practice of directors limiting contacts with presidents. The issue of Patel's independence, or lack thereof, was a flashpoint at a confirmation hearing on Thursday. Senator Chris Coons, Democrat of Delaware, asked Mr. Patel if he would open an investigation into a political adversary because Trump asked him to do so, or stop a legitimate investigation if pressed to do so by the president. Patel said only that he would simply obey the law, but he evaded Mr. Coon's question of whether he would resign if forced or directed to do otherwise. In the view of his many critics, and even some who publicly sing his praises, Mr. Patel's oft-stated loyalty to the president poses one of the most significant challenges to the independence of the FBI in the century since J. Edgar Hoover, its founding director, built an investigative citadel whose autonomy created leverage and abuses of power. Some further reporting, also by the New York Times, Kash Patel denies creating enemies list. President Trump's choice of a staunch loyalist to lead the Bureau upends the post-Watergate tradition of picking nonpartisan FBI directors. In one exchange, Patel denied the 60-person list included as an appendix to his book, Government Gangsters, was an enemies list. The list has incited deep concerns that he would deploy the vast powers of the Bureau to punish Trump's perceived political opponents or those in government who worked on investigations that ensnared him. Quote, "It's not an enemies list," Mr. Patel said. "It's a total mischaracterization." Oh, and by the way, friends, former Attorney General Bill Barr, whose quote we read just a few minutes ago, who, when asked if Kash Patel would make a good deputy director of the FBI, Bill Barr said, "Over my dead body." Bill Barr is on Patel's deep state list. My editorial edition. The article continues. The nomination of Patel, 44, a self-described Trump campaign surrogate, has upended the post-Watergate tradition of picking nonpartisan FBI directors. If confirmed, Patel could provide Trump with a direct line into the FBI, eliminating guardrails meant to insulate the Bureau from White House interference. And friends, as the confirmation hearing wrapped up, here was one of the top-line takeaways from the New York Times. Kash Patel joins Republicans in attacking the FBI he seeks to lead. And friends, that takes us back to what we discussed just a few minutes ago. Patel said that if confirmed, on day one, he will shut down FBI headquarters and he will reopen it the next day as a museum to the deep state. How do you think that makes the thousands of FBI agents and employees who work on behalf of the American people day in and day out at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C.? How do you think it makes them feel that the person who is desperate to lead them as FBI director said, "I'm shutting this building down in which you all work, and I'm going to reopen it the next day as a museum to the deep state"? Boy, talk about the searing disrespect and disregard of the men and women who work at the FBI. Let's hope that there are enough Republican senators who care about things like an FBI director with a deep state list that's been described as an enemies list, an FBI director who was found by a judge to be not a credible witness when he testified on behalf of Donald Trump, an FBI director who writes books about Donald Trump being the king, an FBI director who invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and had to be immunized so he could appear before a grand jury investigating the suspected crimes of Donald Trump. Let's hope there are enough Republican senators who are prepared to stand up for their constituents and for the American people and reject the nomination of Kash Patel for one reason and one reason only. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.